Welcome to House Cleaning 500. Today I'm going to go over the cleaners that you would use to wash your kitchen cupboards, especially wood. I would suggest first gloves. Some people have very sensitive skin and these chemicals of course will dry them out, could cause cracking, bleeding, just could be an irritant. You don't have to, I don't use them, so you'll probably see me clean without them, but I have pretty thick skin, so it's up to you. I love Mr. Foamy. Mr. Foamy, what's it say it'll do here? It removes dirty handprints from the walls and doors, scuff marks on floors, bathtub rings, soot, grease, smoke films, oil, mini inks, light carbon, dust, lipstick, and crayon marks. But it does so much more. It just does all kinds of things. I like it because it's a foam and it'll stick to the cupboard instead of just running straight down. One of the drawbacks to Mr. Foamy is I don't know how to get you in touch with it yet, so give me a little time. I'm working on that, see if I can get you some kind of deal on industrial cleaners or see how I can get you these chemicals. So please bear with me, and since we can't get you this chemical, I'm going to try scrubbing bubbles. I don't know if scrubbing bubbles are going to work. I've been using Mr. Foamy for 10, 15 years. But we're going to give it a try today just to compare it and see if it's a close runner-up. It does foam, so it's going to stick to the cupboard wall, or the cupboard wall a little better than just a spray cleaner. Before you use any chemical on your wood though, I would always read on the back of the can the directions. See if it says not to use it on wood. I did read through this one. It didn't say anything about not using it on wood, but if you wanted to be careful, if you're concerned, if you have a sensitive wood, or not sure if you have a nice thick coating or protection over your wood, you may want to test just a little spot out of vision just to make sure you don't get some kind of discoloration or that the chemical burns the wood. It also says to be careful of eyes. We discussed that in safety. If you want to wear glasses, you can. It's up to you. But it could get in your eyes, and the directions are on the back of the cans as to what to do. So we're going to try that. I have used Fantastic, and I have used 409. I find them to be about the same. I do find they cut through grease well. The only thing I dislike about them is that they tend to run because it's more of a liquid and not the foam. But as you can get your hands on 409 and Fantastic, I will use them both on the surface I'm doing today so you can see how well they work. I would also suggest a sponge cleaner. One thing about the foam and the spray cleaners is you do get a lot of fume, which for me is a little hard. After so many years of cleaning, it tends to bother me. Mr. Foamy, which I've had out here before, some people love the smell. I absolutely hate the smell. Always have. Sometimes it irritates my throat. So I try to have some kind of ventilation going on when I'm doing it. I probably won't use a lot today. As many of you know, my mother's been ill, so I'm trying to go a little gently on the cleaners so that they don't affect her upstairs. 409 and Fantastic, a little bit of smell. Bubbles, I've used them in the bathroom. They don't seem to be too bad. But if you're concerned about it, you could spray it on a damp sponge, wipe it on the wall, let it set a minute, because once you spray these triggers, it gets airborne and you breathe it in easily. I do sometimes use a little bit of a green scratcher, but I use one that's well worn. Don't use a brand new one because you can scratch the surface. They can be a little stiff in the beginning, but if you get one that's been abused for a while, they tend to soften up and you could probably use it a little bit. And use a little elbow grease as to what you need so that you don't hurt the surface. Another thing that I really like for all kinds of things, and this is called a Magic Eraser by Mr. Clean. I find Magic Eraser is wonderful. It'll do all kinds of things, which we'll show you in the future. But here, if you're running into like a greasy spot sometimes or something that won't come off, this is a lot gentler than the green scratcher if you're concerned about that. Say you have a soft wood like a pine's going to be a softer wood. You might want to use the magic eraser and scrub it off. What happens is this does break down, it falls apart. You can see it's kind of broken here as you clean with it so that it's not ripping up the surface. So if you see it falling apart, don't worry about that. That's what it's supposed to do. Break the sponge instead of hurting whatever you're cleaning. I also use a toothbrush for the crevices of the cupboards because you can get in there in the edge, get along the edge, scrub underneath. You will use a good toothbrush for everything in cleaning bathrooms, cupboards, all kinds of things. If you have a lot of grease, you may want to get a spatula. I know the price seems a little strange, especially on wood. It's kind of your choice. Either put a lot more chemical on, which may hurt your breathing, or just the grease could be so thick, especially if you're a new renter or something, you're moving into an apartment that you thought was going to be clean and it's not. Sometimes the grease is just really thick and you have to take something and you're going to scrape it off. This has a pretty small edge. I don't know if you can see it on the camera there, but hopefully you can. I do have a wider one. Difference is this is a little better grade spatula, so it might scratch the wood a little bit. This one's a little cheaper, and you can see it will flex with you scrubbing or pushing on it to scrape it off. So it shouldn't hurt too bad. I would feel the edge though, just to make sure it's not too rough. Many people like to use Murphy's oil soap. I like Murphy's for a few things, but I don't use it very much. I haven't found it's a very strong cleaner, but that would be the purpose of it. If you have a soft wood and you don't want to damage it, Murphy soap is very gentle. Another thing that's a drawback to Murphy's, I feel, is that it has an oil in it. So once you scrub your kitchen, it will attract dirt because of the oil in it. So dust or other things, especially dust, would be attracted to it because of the oil, and it may leave somewhat of a film or turn into a goo itself on the side of your cupboards. If you use it, you might want to wipe down your cupboards, dry them down just so that there's no left residue on there to clean them up. Lastly, I live in Colorado, so climate's going to be different than back east. So I kind of not real strong on back east, but I'm sure my sister will help me out with that. In Colorado, it's very dry, so you use all these chemicals. It's going to dry out your wood, so you might want to go lightly over it with some Old English. It is an oil like the Murphy's, but I find it absorbs into the wood better, and you might just come back through with a dry cloth afterwards and dry it down, just to make sure that dust and grease aren't collecting back on this. If you're back east, you may not have to worry about it as much, the humidity, but I would still think wood, even though it's humid, would need a little bit of a conditioner, and the Old English is going to condition the wood, rehydrate it deep inside because it absorbs into the wood, than just sitting on the surface, and this would be more of a surface. The Murphy's would be more of a surface than the Old English. So these are the chemicals I'm going to try today. My sister did mention Goo Gone. She likes it a lot for the kitchen. I've never used Goo Gone in the kitchen, but and I unfortunately am out, which I can't believe, but I am out. So we'll let her chit-chat about that and tell you what she likes about it, and we may try it in the future. Goo Gone is another one for me. Somewhat toxic to breathe for me. Each person's different, so I'm not a huge fan of getting too much Goo Gone going. But it does work well on stickers and all kinds of things, so there's a type of solvent in there. So we're going to take a little break here and get started.